So we will start with the fourth unit. So in the fourth unit, basically we will be going through the memory design. What are the semiconductor memories? So in the fourth unit, we will be basically seeing the semiconductor memories. Okay, so in that we will be seeing RAM and ROM basically, and how this RAM and ROMs can be designed by using transistors or by using different elements. Okay, so we will be seeing that different memory designs, semiconductor memory designs. And the next topic we will be seeing is uh, design design for testability. Like so, there are two topics basically we will be going through this fourth unit. Okay, so in that the first one is semiconductor memories. What are the semiconductor memories are there, and another topic that is design for testability. So this design for testability is so till semiconductor memory design or up to the third unit we have seen like how we can design different complex circuits and how the analysis can be done, their layout and stick diagram, and then we will be going through the semiconductor design, memory design. So once you have designed a circuit, we will be seeing like once you have designed, we will go for a testing. Okay. So whatever circuit we have designed, we will test that circuit. Okay. So that testing we will be dealing with the different methods. So that is defined within the topic like design for testability. So how a particular circuit to be designed such that that circuit should be a testable circuit. It's like suppose a circuit we have designed, this is a circuit, and this circuit will be having some input and it will be giving some output. So with respect to input, some output will be there. So in case of testing, what we will be doing is suppose it is three input, or you can say four input, any logic is there. Suppose a four input logic is there, suppose a mux is there. Okay, 4 cross 1 mux is there. So in that it will be having four inputs, because based on the select line some output will be there. Okay, so four inputs are there. So in that what we do is in the testing part we will test by providing some input, and we will see like what is the output. If output is coming out to be correct with respect to our specifications, that we will be making sure like it is behaving like a mux or not. Here we were basically saying like a system that we have designed, a mux that we have designed by using a pass transistor or transmission gate. We will be going for testing of this mux, whether this mux is performing correctly or not. It is providing the output with respect to the given select line and input. It is providing a proper output or not. We will be go for testing. So in that testing, here only the four inputs are there. So it is easy to test all the inputs by providing some input to all the input terminals. We can get this circuit tested. Okay, but suppose a circuit is there that is having thousands of inputs. Okay, so suppose there are 1000 inputs are there. Okay, some chip is there, and here it is output. So if it is 1000 inputs are there, we cannot go for testing each input. Okay, we cannot go for providing inputs to each of the input terminal of the chip, because it is thousands of inputs are there. So it will be time taking process to go for testing of all the inputs. So what we do is instead of testing all the inputs, we go for testing a random inputs. Okay, out of thousands we will be selecting some random number of inputs, some number of samples. Okay, like instead of 1000 we were selecting 10 to 5 or 20 up to 20 inputs randomly, and we will be checking like if this should be the input particular input 1, then what will be the logic output. So if logic is according to our specifications, whatever specification we are designing this chip for, if that specification is met, that means it is perfectly working. Okay, so in that design for testability, we will see like if we are going to design we are going to test a circuit, then what kind of different faults can be there. Okay, so after testing there will be some faults. So what type of faults can be there and how these faults can be removed, we can use different methods to remove these faults also. In this unit we will basically seeing the semiconductor memory design, and once we have designed we will be going for testing any arbitrary circuit designed by the VLSI. Okay, so whatever the VLSI circuit we will be designing, those VLSI circuits will be tested by different methods, and what are different faults are there we will be seeing into this unit. Okay. So we will start with the semiconductor memories. So memories, as we already know, a memory is a memory is a electronic circuit that can store some data. Okay, and based on our requirement, this memory size can be having a smaller size or it can be having a larger size. Okay. So basically that we store data, that storing of data is given by the smallest unit, like we will be storing with 1 unit or 1 bit data. So whatever a circuit is there to store 1 bit data, suppose we need to store 5 bit data, then what we will be doing, we will combine 1 bit storing circuit 4 times or 5 times to store 5 bit data. Okay, so to have a larger memory or memory capacity, we will be combining each bit 1 bit system to make it to a larger bit system. Okay, so here there are different performance parameters that defines the memory, you can say efficiency. Okay, or the performance of memory. So performance of memory can be given in terms of different parameters. So it could be the number of bits stored per unit area. So what is the number of bits stored into per unit area is also giving out the efficiency or the performance of memory. So yeah, so if this much of area is there, so how many bits it can store. Okay, this will be giving out the efficiency. So in today's world we can see like the size of memories are being reduced drastically. So initially when you were in schools you might have seen uh, magnetic tapes. Okay, normal tapes are being used to store the data, and then some device was called floppy disk. Floppy was there. Okay, so these are the different type of memory storing devices are there, but nowadays this floppy disk and magnetic tape that were having a larger size, but it were having a smaller your memory capacity, even if they are having the larger space or the area. So number of bits stored per unit area was very less. Okay, but today we can see a small chip is there, SD card we use into our mobiles. Okay, so SD cards we use. So these SD cards are of this much of size, and this can store even now it can have up to 1 TB of storage. Okay, so these memories like SD cards are more efficient than the magnetic tapes or the floppy disk that we used in our earlier childhood. Okay, so from there we can compare. So how the technology has changed from a magnetic tape or we call it a floppy disk to a normal SD cards. Okay, so this has been possible by a continuous research in the field of memory designing. So in this unit, we will be basically seeing the basic structures of the semiconductor memories. So how a 1 bit memory can be designed, or the 1 bit memory can be, how 1 bit memory can be combined to form larger bit memories. Okay, so that we will be seeing here. So the memory is basically designing how the challenge is like the cost per bit. So whatever cost per bits we are going to use for 1 bit storage of memory, that is a key parameter that should be reduced. And also the speed. So what is the memory speed? Okay, that is one of the important parameter that we should be considering while designing a memory. And along with that, the power consumption. So power consumption, it could be in terms of static and the dynamic power dissipation. So static power, we know the power dissipation when the steady state values are to be considered, and the dynamic power is when there is a change in the information. If information is changing from 0 to 1, 1 to 0, then whatever the power dissipation will be there, that will be called the power, that is dynamic power dissipation. So based on that, there are the different performance criteria that we should be considering. And so memory speed can be read time and write time. Okay, so here the memory speed that we see is, that is consist of read time and write time. So whatever data we are going to write on a memory, that will be providing you the write time, and similarly the read time. Okay, so we will use basic MOS devices to design a memory. Okay, so the semiconductor memories are basically designed by using MOS devices. So in that, in the inverted part, or different circuit designing, wheel size circuit designing, we have already discussed the area constraints, speed, and the power dissipation. So area is with respect to the number of transistors we are going to use for designing a particular circuit, that is going to define the area requirement. Speed will be with respect to either it is dynamic or static circuit. Okay, either it is using clock or not. And the power dissipation, that will be static and dynamic power dissipation. So how many what is the frequency of the device, how the different dynamic modes are being changed. Based on that, the power dissipation will be defined. So we will see all these parameters into the designing of semiconductor memories. So here basically the semiconductor memories are divided into two types. So one is a read only memory. Okay, another one is random access memory, that is RAM and ROM. Okay. So here read only memories, as the name suggests, we should be only reading the data from this type of memories. If a particular memory is there, whatever data we have written onto this memory, we can only read this. So once we have written a particular data, that can not be changed or altered, then this is called a read-only memory. Here whatever data is stored, we are reading, and this storing of data is done at the level of fabrication. When we are going to fabricate a chip, or the memory chip. At fabrication point of time, we will be writing a data into this type of ROM or random read-only memory, and at the time of fabrication, whatever data we have written, that data can only be existing on that onto that chip. We cannot change that data for further applications. But there are different type of ROMs. So these different type of ROMs can have different functions, and they have different capabilities also. So they can uh, have user writing also, the option of writing the data by the user, but they can be retained, the data can be written only for once we have written the data, it cannot be rewritten. So here read only memories are there. uh, so other is that uh, random access memory. Okay. So random access memory, that is called RAMs. So these random access memories are the memories that we are going to access the data randomly, and here these are called volatile memories. We call it volatile memories. So random access memories are there, like once the power supply, it is connected to a power supply, whatever data we are writing, we can access the data, write the data, read the data. Okay. But once the power has gone, whatever data is stored into that memory, that is RAM, that will be vanished. Okay. So that's why it is called volatile memories. Similarly, in case of read-only memories, read-only memories are like once it is written, it cannot be changed, either there is a power supply or not. Okay. So this read-only memories are the memories that only uh, exist once we have written the data, and it cannot be erased even if the power supply is gone. And now we will further divide these ROM and RAMs into further types, like how it can be defined. So in the general semiconductor memories, it is of read-only memory and random access memory. Okay. So the random access memories are the memories that can have the capability of reading a data and writing a data. Okay. But in case of ROM, it is only the read. So here the option of read is only there. There is no option of write. So there are different types of ROM, that is mask programmable ROM, that is PROM, erasable PROM, that is EPROM, electrically erasable PROMs, and so these are the different types of ROM. Similarly, in case of memories like RAM, we will see two different types of RAM. So one is static RAM, another one is dynamic RAM. So we will see these structures into detail into the further slides or lectures. Okay. So this is the generalized structure of a memory. So it will be having some columns. Okay. So these are the columns, column 1, column 2, and like to the power m number of columns, okay, are there. Okay. So if any memory is given to be 2 to the power n cross 2 to the power m, that means this first term will be representing you the rows, the second term will be representing you the columns. Okay. So the second term is columns are there. So column is 2 to the power m. So the The structure of this memory is 2 to the power n cross 2 to the power m. So 2 to the power m will be the number of columns. So starting with the column 1, 2, 3 up to 2 to the power m will be the number of columns. So these columns are also called bit lines. Okay. Similarly, it is having horizontal lines. So these horizontal lines are represented by the first term, that is 2 to the power n terms. So they will be starting with the first row. So these horizontal lines are called rows. So first row, second row up to 2 to the power n number of rows will be there. So these rows are called word lines. Okay. So it is columns are bit line and the rows are word lines. Okay. And also, as there are 2 to the power m number of bit lines, so to access or to read or to write a particular data, what we need to do is we have to select a column or a row. So to have a selection between 2 to the power m number out of 2 to the power m number of columns, we need a decoder, and that decoder is called column decoder. So a decoder will be there. So that decoder will be with respect to different bits. These are m number of bits. So if m number of bits are there, so that means it can decode 2 to the power m number of columns. Okay. So for m number of bits of a decoder, 2 to the power m number of outputs will be there. Okay. Similar, these are called column decoders. Similarly, to select a particular row out of 2 to the power n number of rows, we have a row decoder also. Okay. So this is called row address decoder. Okay. So similarly, it will be starting with 1 to n. So n number of bits are there input to the decoder, that is a row decoder, that will be having the total output, that is 2 to the power n. So once a column and a row is interconnected or crosses, this is the crossing point. So this crossing point is considered to be a memory location. So this crossing point is considered to be a memory location. Okay. Or what we do is, we instead of this we call it a simple memory block. One bit memory block will be connected to row also and the column. So this is connected to column and this is connected to row. Similarly, another this joint, generally these joints are called, or we can internally if we see, it will be the same. A block will be there. I mean, 1 bit storage of a block will be there. So this will be a 1 bit storage. So 1 bit storage will be a block. Okay. Similarly, another 1 bit storage will be there. So here the same way, that means total 2 to the power n cross 2 to the power m number of bits it this structure can store, because each joint, this each crossing point between row and column indicates 1 bit. Okay. 1 bit storage. So total we can see 2 to the power m n in cross 2 to the power m number of bits can be stored by this configuration. Okay. So suppose we want to select, we want to read some data what is stored into this location. Suppose this is 0 is stored on this memory location. So to read this, we have to select row 2 and we have to select column 2. Sorry, this column, this one, whatever column is there. So one is to write, one row or column is used to be for writing a data, and one is used to write read the data. Okay. So we will see later, like which one is to be used to write the data into this particular memory location, or what lines we should be using to read and write. Okay. So this is the basic or generalized structure. So this, once you have gone through this, we will be only dealing with this particular block. Okay. So like the structure will be same, the configuration will be same. The only change will be taking place is within the 1 bit storage. Whatever 1 bit storage memory is there, we will be changing, like this 1 bit storage can be used uh, by what number of transistors. Suppose 1 bit storage there, this generally we use flip flops. Okay. We use flip flops to store the data. So one D flip-flop is there. Okay. Okay. Some enable or you call it a clock is there. Okay. Some input is there. So this can store one uh, in one bit data. So one flip-flop can store one bit data. So similarly, this is one bit data storage that can be a simple D flip-flop also. But we will see like if it is a RAM, then what this one bit storage device would be, and if it is a RAM or a ROM, what it could be inside of this one bit storage. Okay. So we are basically going to see this one bit storage element. Okay. The same are given whatever specifications or what is the explanation that we have done. So once we have seen the basic structure, there are some generalized structures. Okay. So generalized structures are the structures that can be used to define a particular memory. So suppose we have considering a read-only memory. So we are considering some examples of a read-only memory. Okay. So what type of read-only memories can be there? So here we are considering a 4-bit cross 4-bit memory. We are going to consider a 4-bit cross 4-bit memory array shown in the figure. Here each column consists of a pseudo NMOS NOR gate driven by some of the row signals, that is word lines. So there are these word lines. Okay, these are the row signals. Okay, so these are called word lines, and the columns, these are the columns, and these columns are having or connected to VDD with a PMOS. So if PMOS is considered to be as a load and these are the driver transistors, so it is a pseudo NMOS logic. Okay, so pseudo NMOS NOR logic is there. That means these two are connected to VDD and these two NMOS and NMOS are connected in parallel. So it is like a pseudo NMOS NOR logic is there. Okay. Okay. So in the previous unit, we have gone through the pseudo NMOS logic. So this is how a basic ROM can be represented. So here we see 4 columns are there, and each columns are connected to a PMOS, and this PMOS gate terminal is connected to 0. That means these PMOS are always on, or what we call it, the columns are always having a value of 1 or a VDD. Okay. But there is a role of rows also. So the row, whatever R1, R2, R3, R4 are there, so these rows will be defining the value that to be stored at a particular column. Okay. So here we see suppose R1, R2, R3, R4 are there. Suppose R1 is on, that is R1 is 1, all others are 0. If R1 is 1 and all others are 0, if it is 0, that means these transistors are off. Okay, so these transistors are off. So if it is off, that means whatever data is there, because it is always 1, this point is always 1. Okay, so this is always 1, this is always 1, this is always 1. Okay, but with respect to the given value of row, the value of columns will be changing. So suppose R1 is on and all others are off, then if R1 is on, that means on means it is 1. So if it is 1, that means this transistor will be on. If this transistor is on, whatever value will be there at this point, that will be connected to ground. That means if it initially it was 1, but now as R1 is 1, this logic stored at this point will be 0. That means whatever crossing point is there between one rows and columns will be providing you a bit or a memory location. So here it is initially 1, but once this transistor R1 is on, this will be on. That means at this point 0 will be stored. So this C1 value will be 0. Okay. So similarly, if R1 is 1 or other 0, C1 value will be 0. Similarly here, it is not making this node to 0 or this column to 0. That means this C2 will be 1. So this is C1, C2, C3, C4. Okay. Similarly, C3 C3 will be initially to 1 when this NMOS transistor is on, because R1 is 1. So this C3 will be 0. So C3 will be 0 and C4 will be 1. Similarly, R1, okay, so in the first case this is the case. In the second case, suppose R2 is 1. So if R2 is 1, so if it is 1, this will be the first C1 and C2 will be 0 0, because this will be this one value will be gone to the ground. So here there will be 0 stored at this location and this location, and here whatever 1 is there, that will remaining the same 1. So here 2 1 1 will be there in the C3 and C4. Similarly, if R3 is on, then this will be 1 and this will be 1, and the here this NMOS transistor and this NMOS transistor will be turned on. So that will be making the C2 and C3 voltages, that will be equals to 0 0. Similarly, in case of this R4 is on, this value and this value will be equals to 0, and this one is 1 and 1. Okay, so this is how we can store 0100 or 0011 or 1001 or 0110. Okay, so to store 0110, we have to select this as the row logic. Okay, so this is how we can design a ROM circuit by using pseudo NMOS NOR gate logic. Another one is the next we are seeing is uh, the ROM circuit is there. With respect to the NAND logic, we are going to use the NAND logic to define the ROM structure. Here also the load transistor is connected to a depletion load NAND gate. So it is like load is a depletion type NMOS structure is there, and here the NAND structure, instead of parallel connection, here the series connection of the transistors are taking place. So NMOS transistor is in series with this one, so this NMOS transistor is in series with this one, so it is a NAND structure. So in the previous one it was a parallel connection, so this transistor is having a parallel connection with this one at the same time. Okay, so these are the NOR structure. The similar logic we can connect by using the NAND also. So in that case, so suppose this one is there. Okay, so here R1 is 0. So the consider the first case. R1 is 0 and R2, R3, R4 all are 1. If all are 1, okay, that means whatever a logic is there at this point, okay, so here again this is C1, C2, C3 and C4. So once R1 is 0, that means this is 0, this R1 is 0. So this is 0 means it is off. If it is 0, that means this is off. Okay. If this is off and all other transistors, so we have to find out the C1, C2, C3 and C4 values. So in case of C1, there is no transistor, so we'll leave it. But in that column we can see here is a transistor, and this transistor is connected to, in the first case, R3 is 1. R3 is 1, that means this R3 is 1, that means this is on in the case of first one. And here R1 is 0, so it is off. Again R1 is 0, so it is off, and all other transistors are on. So if all other transistors are on, that means this C terminal is, if it is on, this is on, and this is also on, this is on, this is on, and this is on. That means this C1 terminal, suppose in case of C1 terminal, so if this C1 terminal is connected here and it is on, that means it is connected to 0. That means in the first case C1 value will be 0. Why? Because because it was initially 1, but it is connected to ground by this transistor, and this transistor is on. That means this 1 will be connected to ground. That means the whatever storage value is there, that is VDD, that will be discharged to a 0 value. So a 0 will be stored on C1 value. Similarly, in case of C2, we can see here one transistor is off because of R1 is 0, because R1 is 0 and these are 1 1 1. So this is off, and if this is off, that means whatever value is there, that is 1 at C1, will be remaining the same 1 1. Okay, so this 1 will be there in the C1. Similarly, in case of C3, here these transistor and these transistors are on at the same time. That means whatever value is 1 is there, that will be discharged to a 0 value, like in the case of C1. Similarly, in case of C4, one of the transistor is off, all the other transistors are on, but if one is off, that means initially it was 1, so again the one value will be remaining, so one value will be here. Okay, so similarly in all other cases we can get the similar logic. It's like the storage of a particular value can be obtained even by using the NAND logic also. Okay, so this is the room structure. Okay, so room structure is whatever data we should be storing. Once we have stored, okay, so once we have stored, that will be remaining the same, or with respect to the row value we can change the value. Okay, so that is how the room logics can be implemented. Up to here, that is the basic of memories. In the next class we will see uh, the basic RAM structures. Okay, so we will be seeing RAM structure and ROM structures one by one, and we will go through the overview of the circuits, like how we can implement a particular circuit by using MOS logic. Okay. So MOS transistors will be used for designing the RAMs and ROMs.